In Stanley Kubrick's absolute masterpiece released in 1971, Clockwork Orange, it is safe to say that violence plays a big role. Whether it is physical or mental harm, you will have to agree that Kubrick also made sure that these scenes do not overwhelm the viewer at first, because the real tragedy is still going to happen. In Clockwork Orange, the theme of personal choice plays a big role. It runs through the film just like the main protagonist's, Alex Delarge's eventful life. His early confidence, his recklessness and egotistical behavior stand all the more in contrast as we witness his eventual, tragic as well as in a very morbid sense comedic downfall. The risky attempt of feeding the abstract, expressionistic aesthetic and feel of the work with a realistic and tragic plot. That's what fascinates me so much about Clockwork Orange, my favorite film in Stanley Kubrick's entire filmography. Though it must also be noted here that this story fits more into a bourgeois tragedy, instead of, let's say, a Greek or classical one. Alex is not your typical larger-than-life hero on top of a hierarchical system, but a normal member of the established society. And so, he eventually becomes a victim of it, being degraded not only by society, but his former colleagues, who, in a way, represent society as well. While scenes like this also exist, where we then accidentally start to laugh. In history, comedies were performed alongside tragedies on a regular basis. To many historical figures, from Aristophanes to Shakespeare, comedies were a way for the viewer to be relieved, a welcoming balance to the exhausting and stressful everyday life. Whether it is women disguising themselves as men, or men founding a new state with the help of birds, yes birds, every single comedy has at least one wildly abstract concept to it, and in this regard, Clockwork Orange speaks for itself. And I actually think that the film, if it were shot with a higher budget, would have lost some of this in-your-face charm that in some ways defines it. Kubrick's talent as a director shows itself in the many shots and scenes that maybe do not look as clean and perfect as the ones of many other movies, but bring a uniqueness to the table. Well, that's another word to describe Clockwork Orange, unique. Let's be honest here, who of you watching the film for the first time got into it while expecting this? Well, no one, including myself. Who of you got to laugh tremendously at the hilarious fight between the Droogs and their rival gang, while moments before that being in extreme shock and anger? Who of you was pitying Alex during the end of his quote-unquote rehabilitation, only to also be weirded out by the unique musical choice that paints the picture, a medieval folk tune? And on the occasions where the background is flat, grey and dull, most notably the prison and the outside scenes, Kubrick lets the realism of the situation fully come in, taking us, and in proxy, Alex back down to earth. The tragedy of the moment suddenly becomes completely visible, where the curtains are dropped and we are left with sheer drama and despair. And then, as much as these scenes are tragic in their own right, the ending is much different. Instead of a catastrophe that would be normal practice at the end of tragedies, the comedy aspect pushes through, and the typical ending for a comedy, the resolution is given, which is beautifully paralleled with Alex's final words and simultaneously the final words of the film.
I was cured, all right.
In only 136 minutes, Stanley Kubrick gave us an exploration of society, choice, freedom, revenge, nature versus nurture, family and genitals, all balanced out into a fully entertaining piece of fiction that balances tragedy and comedy in a way that feels organic and not forced. Clockwork Orange, in a way, shows us the power of tragedy, hidden in laughter and relief.